In the final years of the 19th century, as America thundered forward with industry and invention, Chicago rose from the ashes of its great fire to proclaim itself a modern city of ambition. By 1893, the city was chosen to host the world's Columbian Exposition, a glittering World's Fair celebrating the 400th anniversary of Columbus's voyage. Millions of visitors streamed into the city to marvel at electricity, architecture, and culture. It was the dawning of a new era, yet in the very shadow of progress an extraordinary darkness festered. Just a few miles from the fairgrounds, a handsome young doctor with polished manners and a disarming smile constructed a building that would forever be remembered as the Murder Castle. His name was Herman Webster Mudgett, better known by the alias H. Holmes, and within the walls of his labyrinthine hotel, dozens of unsuspecting guests disappeared, their fates sealed in gas-filled chambers, secret passages, and a basement designed for death. Holmes was born in 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. From an early age, his intelligence was matched by a cold detachment. He was bullied as a child, and legends claim that when classmates forced him to confront a human skeleton in medical school, instead of terror, he felt fascination. As a boy, he showed signs of cruelty toward animals, a red flag seen in the histories of many future killers. Yet outwardly, he was clever and ambitious, pursuing studies in medicine. He graduated from the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery in 1884, already skilled in manipulating people for his gain. While studying, he stole cadavers, disfigured them, and staged accidents in order to collect insurance payouts. Fraud, deceit, and death had become intertwined in his character long before he set foot in Chicago. When Holmes arrived in the booming city of Chicago in 1886, he reinvented himself as a doctor and pharmacist. He took over a drugstore in the Englewood neighborhood, winning trust with his refined manners and sharp appearance. But he dreamed of something larger. Across the street, he purchased a lot and began construction on a massive 3-story building. Outwardly, it was advertised as a hotel and business block, a respectable enterprise to accommodate visitors for the coming World's Fair. But Holmes had more sinister intentions. He hired and dismissed multiple crews of builders, ensuring that no one person understood the design in its entirety. Walls were built, torn down, and rebuilt. Staircases ended abruptly. Doors opened into brick walls. Passages twisted into confusion. To the casual observer, it seemed eccentric. In truth, it was engineered for horror. The Murder Castle was a maze of deception. Some rooms were airtight and lined with asbestos, fitted with gas pipes that could be controlled from Holmes's office. Guests would enter, only to be sealed inside as Holmes released gas, silently suffocating them. Other rooms were soundproof, windowless chambers where screams could never reach the outside world. Chutes connected upper floors to the basement, where bodies could be swiftly disposed of. The basement itself was a chamber of horrors, a dissecting table, vats of quicklime and acid, and a monstrous furnace large enough to incinerate a human body. Holmes could strip flesh from bone and sell skeletons to medical schools, profiting even from death. Every detail of the building spoke of his meticulous cruelty. As the World's Fair approached in 1893, thousands of young men and women poured into Chicago, seeking work and adventure. Holmes saw in them opportunity. He was charming, articulate, and confident, with the appearance of a successful doctor. He offered employment in his hotel or pharmacy, often targeting young women from rural areas who had little family nearby. He seduced others, presenting himself as a suitor or protector, but those who accepted his invitations often vanished. Women were lured into his castle and never emerged. Families back home waited for letters that never came. Some victims were locked in vaults and suffocated, clawing desperately at steel walls until the air ran out. Others were gassed in their beds or poisoned with medicines Holmes prescribed. Afterward, their bodies slid down greased chutes to the basement, where they were stripped, dissected, and destroyed. Holmes's cruelty was not limited to strangers. He married multiple times, often simultaneously, abandoning wives when they became inconvenient. Mistresses who fell under his spell disappeared when they asked too many questions. Even children were not spared. He charmed and manipulated everyone he encountered, always with profit in mind. He defrauded suppliers, conned insurers, and tricked investors. Murder was simply another business venture in his endless web of schemes. The World's Fair provided him with endless prey. Visitors seeking cheap lodging checked into the hotel. Some were never seen again. Travelers eager for romance or excitement found themselves trapped in his games. Though newspapers of the time would later sensationalize the number of his victims, with some claiming over 200, modern historians estimate between 20 and 50 people may have perished within the murder castle. What is certain is that Holmes's victims were real, their lives extinguished in an urban labyrinth designed by one man's monstrous imagination. When the fair ended in October 1893, the city exhaled, its grand spectacle complete. But for Holmes, new schemes unfolded. He left Chicago and traveled to Texas, Missouri, and beyond, continuing insurance frauds and cons. With his accomplice Benjamin Pitezel, he plotted to swindle insurance companies by faking deaths. But greed and paranoia led Holmes to kill Pitezel in 1894, setting off a chain of investigations that would finally expose him. He murdered 3 of Pitezel's children as well, hiding their bodies in cellars and vacant houses. These crimes, more than the whispered disappearances in Chicago, became the focus of detectives who began to see the true scope of Holmes's depravity. In November 1894, Holmes was arrested in Boston for insurance fraud. At first, his crimes seemed financial, but as investigators probed deeper, the truth unraveled. They traced his steps back to Chicago, to the castle in Englewood. When police entered the building, they found a house of horrors, secret passages, trapdoors, torture chambers, and the nightmarish basement. Newspapers quickly dubbed it the Castle of Terror. The public, already fascinated by crime stories, devoured every detail. The tale of a doctor who built a hotel of death during the World's Fair gripped the nation. Holmes became America's first notorious serial killer, his crimes magnified by sensational headlines. Holmes stood trial in Philadelphia in 1895 for the murder of Benjamin Pitezel. The evidence was overwhelming. He was calm, articulate, and even charming in court. But his mask of civility could not hide the enormity of his crimes. He was convicted and sentenced to death. Before his execution, Holmes wrote a confession for a newspaper, claiming responsibility for 27 murders, though many of those named were later found alive. His confession was riddled with lies and exaggerations, a final manipulation to maintain control of his narrative. On May 7, 1896, Holmes was hanged at Moyamensing Prison in Philadelphia. True to his eerie nature, he met death without panic, showing no remorse. Even in his last moments, he remained composed, as if confident that his legend would outlive him. When the trapdoor fell, his neck did not snap immediately, and he strangled slowly for 15 minutes before being pronounced dead. It was a gruesome end for a man who had orchestrated so much suffering. After his death, the legend of H.H. Holmes only grew. The murder castle, gutted by fire and eventually demolished in 1938, became a ghost in Chicago's memory. Writers and journalists painted him as a near-mythical figure, the American equivalent of Jack the Ripper. The idea of a man who built a hotel specifically to murder fascinated and horrified the public. For generations, Holmes was invoked as the archetype of the charming killer, a man who exploited trust and cloaked evil in respectability. Holmes's legacy is not only about the murders he committed, but also about what he represented in an era of progress. While Chicago dazzled the world with its fair, just blocks away lurked a reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty. The murder castle stood as the hidden underside of ambition, a place where dreams turned to nightmares. His story forces us to confront the unsettling truth that evil can thrive in plain sight, hidden beneath charm, success, and innovation. Today, historians still debate the exact number of his victims. Some suggest the newspapers exaggerated, weaving myth into fact to sell sensational stories. Others argue the body count may never be known, as many young women who came to Chicago during the fair vanished without trace. Whether 20 or 200, the impact of Holmes's crimes lies not in the exact figure, but in the terror he embodied. He was one of America's earliest serial killers, a man whose cunning, ambition and sadism converged in a structure designed to kill. The tale of H. Holmes endures not because of his charm or his intelligence, but because of the vulnerability of his victims. They were young women seeking work, children of struggling families, visitors eager for wonder, all caught in the orbit of a man who saw them only as profit and prey. His story is a cautionary tale about trust, about how predators exploit moments of hope, and about how beneath the shining veneer of progress, darkness can flourish. Don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Crimson Narratives for more haunting stories from the darkest corners of human history. Because only by remembering can we honor the victims, and only by telling these stories can we guard against the monsters who walk among us.